Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today, a subject we can all agree upon. What's the best computer for music production? You probably already know and don't need this episode, but if you're here, stick around and we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about 5 computer systems. One of those is going to be an Apple Mac. On the other side, we're going to have essentially 4 PC computer systems. Now, I say PC, and obviously the Mac is a PC. It's a personal computer. What they used to call these PCs over here, the Intel AMD based PCs, you used to call them IBM compatibles. But nobody says that anymore, not unless they defrosted you from like 1995. So Mac, PC. The Mac system is going to be a Mac Mini. Now you can get into a Mac Mini for $599, but we're going to use the top spec of the Mac Mini. That's $1,799. It's going to have its best processor, its most RAM, and its most internal storage. On the PC side, we're going to have 4 systems. 3 pre-builts, which are systems that are built by companies and that are shipped to you and they're just ready to go. And then we're going to have the last system. And that system is going to be kind of a wild card. More on that in a moment. Now, if you'd asked me, or probably anybody that was heavy into music production 30 years ago, what's the best computer for music production? You might have heard Mac. In fact, you probably would have heard that for visual arts as well. Is that still true? We're going to find out today. Let's go to the computer now and find out. Alrighty, here we are inside a spreadsheet that I created with our 5 systems. First of all, we'll look at our Mac system with our PC systems that are pre-built. And then what we'll do is we'll add in our wild card. First of all, we have our Mac Mini. Next, we have a Maingear North AMD edition. Then we have an Alienware Aurora. This is from Dell. And then we have iBuyPower Y60. This is a computer that you can buy regularly at Best Buy. Price on the Mac Mini is $17.99. And I told you that was going to be kind of our starter point. This is a fully spec'd out Mac Mini. The Maingear North edition is a little bit more than that. $18.57, so that's another $58. Not a huge amount of difference. The Alienware just happened to come in right at that price, and the iBuyPower was significantly cheaper, to say the least, at $15.48. That's a pretty good price. As far as the CPU, for the Mac Mini you get an M4 Pro. For the Maingear, you get an AMD Ryzen 5 9600X. You get an Intel Ultra 7 265F for the Alienware Aurora. And you get an i9 14900F for the iBuyPower. As far as the core counts go, you can see it's 10 cores for the Mac Mini, 8 for the Maingear, 20 for the Alienware, and 24 for the iBuyPower. Next up, we have the Passmark score. Now, this multi-core score here is a very good measure of CPU power. It's a set of benchmarks across many different types of tasks, and it's a really good one to use to compare one CPU to another. Now you can see for the Mac Mini it's 32,928, and the interesting thing here is this is kind of how fast my current music computer is that I built back in 2019, and this is a current product. Next up we have the Maingear. It's a little bit slower at just under 30,000. The Alienware Aurora is 48,000 and change, and that puts it significantly higher than the Mac Mini. And also the iBuyPower Y60 is significantly faster than the Mini, with the Aurora being the fastest on the Passmark score. I included the single core values, but they're really not that important. You can pretty much ignore them. Next, we have the motherboard. It's proprietary on the Mac Mini. For the main gear, it's an MSI Pro B850p Wi-Fi. That would cost you $199. This is an off-the-shelf motherboard that you could just buy at a place like Amazon or practically any computer store. For Alienware Aurora, we have a proprietary motherboard. This is a weakness with a lot of Dell computers. They use proprietary parts. This can make upgrading difficult. Sometimes it's with the motherboard, sometimes it's with the power supply. HP/Compaq was guilty of this as well. Going on to the iBuyPower, they use an Asus Prime Z790A Wi-Fi 6E. And you can see this would be the price you would pay for that board if you were to buy it on Amazon. It's another off-the-shelf device, which is good. It means the upgrade path is going to be standard, a lot easier to deal with. As far as our random access memory, and this is where your computer programs run when the computer is active, we have 32 gigabytes across the board. So that's good. And 32 gigabytes is fast becoming a minimum for music production. Next up, we have our primary storage device. This is a 2 terabyte solid state drive in the Mac Mini, a 2 terabyte solid state drive in the main gear, a 1 terabyte solid state drive in the Alienware, and a 1 terabyte solid state drive in the iBuyPower. So you can see that the Mac Mini does a little better here. Now remember, this iBuyPower is significantly discounted. You could put a 4 terabyte drive here for about $200, and that would still put it under the price of the Mac Mini. Next up, we have secondary storage and third level storage, and none of these devices have that. When we get to our wildcard, we'll take a look at this information. As far as the GPU, we're talking about the graphics processing unit, or you can think of it as the graphics card. It's proprietary in the Mac Mini. They're using an RTX 5050 in the main gear, which is the bottom of the line essentially for the RTX 5 series. It's not a bad card though. For the Alienware Aurora, we have an RTX 5060 Ti, and the Ti means a much better version of that 5060 card. We're getting 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is really good. And you can see this is an upgrade from the 5050, and the Ti is an even further upgrade. Now, you should be aware that these are essentially gaming systems. So they're going to have pretty robust cards in them for the graphics. From iBuyPower, we get an RTX 4060, which is an older version. It's the 4 series card, but it is a Ti and it's 8 gigabytes. All of these graphics cards, whether it's the Mac or the PC pre-built, are going to support at least 3 monitors. So not going to be a problem firing up 3 monitors on each of these, and running them in 4K is probably not going to be much of a problem. So we're pretty much on par there. As far as the power supply is concerned, it's proprietary in the Mac. We get a 650 watt power supply in the main gear, a 500 watt power supply in the Aurora, and a 600 watt power supply in the Y60. Now, generally speaking, in the pre-builts, they don't give you very much more than the basic of what they need to run the components that they've included in the system. Sometimes when you're upgrading, you won't have to upgrade the power supply. Adding a couple more solid state drives is not a big demand on power. So you could probably do it in any of these systems and not have to upgrade the power supply. Putting in a more beefy graphics card definitely could mean that you might have to upgrade the power supply. Next up, we have the case. It's a proprietary case on the Mac Mini. It's that cute little small case. On the main gear, it's a Fractal Design North XL. And there's the price you would pay for that case if you were to buy it on Amazon. It's an off-the-shelf part, which is very good. Always good to see that and not have something that's proprietary. For the Alienware, it is proprietary. And this, once again, means you could have problems upgrading the system. For the iBuyPower, you get this case right here, which is a fairly expensive case, and it's a decent case. Next up, we have CPU cooling. For the Mac Mini, it's proprietary. For the main gear, it's a Cooler Master Hyper 212. This is not a liquid cooling system, and you can see these other two are using a liquid cooling system. That's usually something you see on an enthusiast computer. This cooler here is no slouch. It's a good cooler. Here you have liquid cooling. Often liquid cooling is associated with a system that you might want to overclock. Next up, we have thermal paste. It's included in all these systems, as are the fans. I just included this here because we'll need that for our wildcard system. Last but not least, not every system comes with a keyboard and mouse. Some people consider this e-waste, but for those of us that are getting our first computer, we're going to need a mouse and a keyboard. For the Mac Mini, you don't get a mouse and a keyboard, and I priced in $30. This will buy you a fairly decent Logitech wireless mouse and keyboard. That's true for the main gear. For the Alien Aurora, you get a corded mouse and a corded keyboard. And that's true for the iBuyPower as well. Let's take a look at our wildcard. Our wildcard is a computer that we're going to build ourselves. The price is going to be $1,792.80 based on the components that I chose. These are just some good components from some name brand manufacturers. No Huawei or Acme brand here. Believe me, this is not the store where the Wile E. Coyote buys his rocket skates. These are all going to be well-respected name brands. At $1,792.80, we're still below our Mac Mini price. But how is it going to stack up? Let's take a look. We're going to install an AMD Ryzen 9 series processor, the 7950X. That's going to take a fairly large chunk of our money. We're going to get 16 cores with 32 threads, and it's going to be screamingly fast at a pass mark score of 62,455. Let's look back. That's almost twice as fast as the Mac Mini. That's more than twice as fast than the main gear, and it's about 28 to 29% faster than both the Alienware Aurora and the iBuyPower Y60. I've also included the single core score just because I could, but it's not that important. Next up, the motherboard, a Gigabyte X870 Aorus Elite Ice. Now we're paying $30 extra for the Ice version. And all that does is give us a white color. We don't have to do that, and we could save $30 here. Let me tell you about this motherboard. Compared to these off-the-shelf motherboards, it's better, a lot better. These are some nice motherboards, but they're what I would call mid-tier at best. This is the bottom of the upper tier. That's why it's an X series motherboard and not a B series motherboard. This is the connectivity you're going to get, and it's huge. 4 times M.2 drives. Those are those little stick of gum drives that we have over here in these devices. And we have 4 that we can put into our motherboard. You can only put 1 on the Mac Mini. Here you could put 4. It's got 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, which is going to be fast enough. We got 4 SATA ports that we can add some more solid state drives. We can add some spinning hard drives. We can also add a CD, DVD, Blu-ray burner if we want. We've got plenty of USB ports. We've got 2 USB 4s. We've got 6 versions of USB 3. I believe 2 of these are USB 3.2 and 4 of them are USB 3. We even have some of the older USB 2 ports. You may say, why include those ports? Well, mouse and keyboards aren't that fast. You don't need a super fast port. And so we're going to plug those into these slower ports. Also, printers don't need a super fast port. So we can plug them in there. We've got Wi-Fi 7, which is super fast. What about our RAM? G.Skill Ripjaws 64 gigabytes. That's twice as much RAM as we have over here. That's a really good selling point for this. You gotta have a lot of RAM to do orchestral scoring, even some regular pop and country scoring really benefits from having this much RAM so you can have some heavy duty sample libraries. Let's talk about our storage. Our disk drive 1 is going to be a 2 terabyte M.2 from Western Digital, the Western Digital Black. This is a highly respected fast device, 7,000 megabytes per second. We can actually upgrade it for $30 to a Gen 5, which will be closer to about 13,000 megabytes per second. That's really great for loading up big sample libraries. That's equal to our 2 terabyte M.2 over here on the Mac. And I'm not sure how fast this device is because they don't give you those specs. We're also going to add a second 2 terabyte Western Digital drive so that we can have this dedicated to our sample libraries and not have to mess up our primary boot drive that we're going to put our applications and our OS on. We're going to add a third disk drive, and this is going to be an 8 terabyte Seagate Barracuda. This will be more than fast enough to handle our projects from our digital audio workstation. Also for recording all of our acoustic sources like drums, vocals, guitars. This is a great way to go. And a spinning hard drive like this can handle dozens, maybe even hundreds of 48 kilohertz, 24-bit audio tracks. Next up, our GPU. We don't have to be as fast as these devices over here. These video cards are certainly better than what we're going to have. We're going to have a GeForce GTX 1660 Ti with 6 gigabytes. This is more than capable of running 3 monitors just like these guys in 4K. We could even do some light to medium level gaming on it. And that would be if we really wanted to, but we're really trying to create a music PC here. An Asus GT730 is an option. This is a very slow card, but we don't need it to be incredibly fast. This will handle 4 1080p monitors. And that would save us what? Maybe about $50 because it's about $120, maybe $60. That way you could upgrade both of these drives to be Gen 5. I'm just saying. There's always possibilities for going a little bit less in one area and adding that to another area. Next up, we're going to have our power supply, 850 watts. A Thermaltake GF1. This is a 100% modular power supply. It makes building a system a lot more eloquent and simple. I'm not sure if these power supplies over here are 100% modular. Usually the stuff from Dell is semi-modular at best and usually proprietary and probably something to be avoided. With 850 watts, it's going to give us plenty of expansion options as far as adding additional drives and not running out of power. We're going to use an NZXT H9 Flow dual chamber case. This is a well-respected case, and it's by a well-respected company, NZXT. Remember, none of these companies are giving me anything for giving you this list. I'm just picking some parts that I think would make a really good system. It's $89.99. It already includes 4 fans in the case, and I chose it partially because of that. So we don't have to buy any case fans or additional fans for it to keep the CPU, our graphics card, and the memory cool. It's a white case, which is why I chose this white board. But you don't have to. You could get a black case for the same price or even less. You could also get the black version of this board and save 30 bucks. Next up, we need to cool our CPU. I chose a Cooler Master Hyper 212. This one over here is the Hyper 212 Black Edition. This is essentially the same version, but not a super fancy version of it. It's more than capable of keeping our CPU nice and cool. We're not going to be overclocking. We want stability and reliability in our system. Next up, I included this because somebody might just say, hey, you didn't include thermal paste. If we're building our own system, we're going to need some thermal paste between the CPU and the cooler. I chose Arctic MX4 thermal paste. This is what is considered high quality thermal paste. Because of that, it's a little more expensive at $8.99. You're not going to use all of it, so you'll have some left over to give to a friend for their system. You could probably buy pretty decent thermal paste for $4. If the difference in the price of thermal paste was, say, $100 versus $200, of course I'd tell you to buy the $100 thermal paste if it was probably just as good. Here we're talking about the difference between probably $4.99 or $5.99 versus $8.99, and I've had very good success with the Arctic MX4, and so that's why I've used it. Next, we're going to need to have an operating system. And so we're going to put Windows on this machine, and we'll choose Windows 11. We're going to get that on DVD, and that's going to cost us $119. When you're building the system, you're going to have a USB DVD reader or writer, or you're going to have one that you can put in this build, at least temporarily. The alternate choice to this is to buy Windows on a USB, but you pay a premium for that. It's $30 extra. I will say that this is a really good convenience to have. So once you've built your computer system and you need to install Windows on it, you can just plug this USB into one of the USB ports, and generally the first time you boot the computer, it's going to scan all the ports looking for a bootable drive, and it will find this operating system installation USB, and it will say, hey, I found Windows. Would you like to install it? And it will start booting up, and then you'll say yes, and then you just follow the prompts. Last but not least, since we are building our own system, we are going to have to get a keyboard and a mouse. And once again, I chose the $30 keyboard and mouse combo from Logitech. It's wireless. It's going to be probably as good as anything. You can spend a lot of money buying a gaming level keyboard. There's something nice about a mechanical keyboard, and that's what I use in my studio, but a mouse and a keyboard like this will be just fine. That's pretty much it for our builds. And I'm going to leave this on the screen for a few seconds, and you can freeze it here and compare the items. What you're really getting with a computer that you build yourself is a much faster CPU, much faster. You're getting drive options. If you get serious about composing or doing music in a computer, creating your own music, having multiple drives is essentially a must. One drive for your operating system and your programs and applications, and then one for your sample libraries and your synth libraries and whatnot, and then a spinning hard drive so you're getting a lot of space at a reasonable price so that you can store your projects and also back up some of your information. Now, of course, backups, you should be using the 1, 2, 3 method, but that will be in another episode, maybe one day. This is just a set of hardware I chose. You can replace some of these with different brands, different models, and providing they're decent name brand companies. Gigabyte, AMD, G-Skill, GE Force, NZXT, Cooler Master, Arctic. These are well-known companies in the PC space. They're respected and they produce good quality products. So that's why I chose them. There's no generic brands here. Now, I think this is the best value. And building your own computer is kind of like Lego for grown-ups. It's not for the faint of heart. There are two heart palpitation moments. The first one is putting the CPU, that's this guy right here, onto the motherboard. There are some delicate pins that you don't want to bend. Really, it's not that hard. Do people bend pins? Of course they do. It's usually because they drop the CPU into the socket. That's the way it happens. You just have to be careful. The next heart palpitation moment is after you've put everything together and you turn it on for the first time and you have either your DVD connected to a USB port or physically inside the machine for a temporary amount of time just for the install, or you're using a stick here, essentially installing your OS. That's another heart palpitation moment. Will everything work? Is Windows gonna install and then is the computer gonna boot up? Once you get past that, it's going to be reliable. There's still a lot of work to do, and it doesn't matter if you buy the Mac system, any of these pre-built, or you build your own. You're going to have to install all your software, things like Cubase and your sample libraries. Every time I buy a new computer, I dread the fact that I'm going to have to copy over libraries or move drives to another machine and then authorize them and go to all the companies and hope everything's going to work out right. It's a little bit of a nightmare from that standpoint, but it's always worked out. And you can pull your hair out a little bit. About building your own computer system, you can see the kind of power that you get here compared to other systems. It's significantly more. More drive space, a faster CPU, more random access memory, which is very important if you're running large sample libraries like I am. It just makes sense. If you can't build a system yourself, I have some solutions for you in the closing, and it'll explain it to you in enough detail, I think, to help you. I'm trying to push you towards this. I don't get anything out of this. I'm not being paid by any of these companies. They don't even know who I am because I have like the smallest music channel on the internet. I think this is a great way to go. I love Apple products. I would never buy any of these pre-builts. They're just a bad idea, and I'll tell you more about them in the closing. The good thing about the pre-built is it comes ready to go, and that includes the Mac Mini. But this is not a hard way to go here. So another thing about building your own PC, you're going to have expansion ability here. Also, once you've built it, you'll have experience. And the next time you have to do it, it's not going to be a big deal. Also, if you decide to upgrade the RAM here and make it 128 gigabytes of RAM because you have 2 sticks of 32, putting RAM into a socket is like plugging a plug into an outlet in the wall. It's not hard. And you can do it yourself. And you don't get to do that on a Mac Mini. I truly don't care which you go, whether you use a Mac or a PC. I've pretty much come down on what I think is the best option here, PC. The value is there, and I'm going to go into this in more detail in the next section. It's up to you to decide which way you want to go if you're deciding on creating or buying a new computer or possibly building one. At this point, I'm going to hand it back to the other Jeff, and he'll close out the episode, and I think he's got a lot to tell you. My gosh, that was pretty intense. I'm sorry for all the techno babble. I know some of you appreciate it and know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that suffered through it, hoping it would end as soon as possible, thanks for doing that. The bottom line is this. PCs are just a better value. You get more bang for the buck. The whole idea of, I don't mind paying extra for a Mac because it's just a better environment and a better experience. That stuff was true maybe 25 years ago. But Windows has 40 years of maturity under its belt. And it's every bit as good of an operating system as Mac OS. It just is. It's point and click. And the whole bottom line here is this. If I were to load up Cubase on a Mac, like a Mac Mini, and load Cubase up on a PC, and then switch the users, they probably wouldn't have any trouble arming tracks, recording audio and MIDI, and editing those tracks. Because when you're in the app, it essentially looks the same and it operates the same. If anything, on the PC, it might be a better experience because for the same price point, it would be a much faster processor with more RAM and more resources, period. At this point, you might say, okay, Jeffy, but you just hate Apple, right? You're an Apple hater. And I hate those Apple hater people. Not true. I have a lot of Apple technology. I have 2 iPhones, I have 3 iPads that I use in the studio, and I love my iTech. But part of the problem with the iTech is the same thing you find with Mac computers, especially the Mac Mini. These iPhones are both identical models, and they are my personal iPhones. This one has 32 gigs of RAM. This one has 128, but I can't upgrade this one. It's stuck with 32 because that's just the way it came from the factory, and it's not user upgradable. The same thing is true with the Mac Mini. The Mac Mini, whatever spec you buy, that's what you're stuck with. Now, some people are going to say in the comments, that's not true. There are hacks that you can do, and YouTube will show you how to do that. And that is true. But if you think you would have heart palpitations building your own PC, imagine what it would be like disassembling a brand new iMac and voiding your warranty. Or I said iMac, didn't I? Well, I'm really dating myself. I meant Mac Mini. If you were disassembling your Mac Mini, you're going to void the warranty, and now you've got to buy that card and put it in there and everything. Just start off with a PC. You'll be a lot happier. The whole thing about the PC platform is it's set up to, 1, be user upgradable, and 2, be user serviceable. If I want to throw a new hard drive into my PC, I can do that. And it sits inside the PC, and the form factor hasn't changed. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, the Mac Mini, it's so cute, and it's just 1 power cable, and then maybe 1 cable going to the monitor. Very true, okay? But you're going to run out of resources pretty quickly. And when you start adding on external hard drives, it doesn't look as eloquent anymore when you have 3 hard drives with 3 data cables and 3 power cables hanging off that device. With the PC, just goes inside and the form factor remains the same. The other thing is it's user serviceable. If my power supply on my music computer gives off a puff of smoke and dies, I can just go on Amazon, order myself a new power supply, unplug a few cables, undo a few screws, put in a new power supply, and I'm up and running again. Maybe I'm down half a day. If that happens with something like a Mac Mini, you're going to have to send it to some Apple certified service center. Who knows how long that's going to take? Depending on where you are in the US, that might mean sending it away for a couple of weeks. And if you're a working musician, can you really afford to be down that long? I actually live not too far from Cupertino, but I have no idea where a Mac Mini would have to go. The beauty of the PC platform is it's upgradable and serviceable. And if it starts to get to the point where it's a little bit slow, maybe I can upgrade the processor in it. I can also put more RAM in it. I can put more storage devices in it. And I can keep it operating and usable by me for a small fee. Also, there are components in it that I can move to a new build. The power supply on my main computer is a 1300 watt power supply, way more than it needs to be. But remember, the components only draw the power they need. So I can move that power supply to my next build and save $200 on that. I can use the same case as well. With the Mac Mini, it's just all glued in one unit, and you're just stuck with the way it is. Very, very true with this iTech, like the iPhone, the iPad. I can't upgrade this. It's just what it is. And it's beautiful and it works. And I've never had any problems with it. And that's the beautiful thing about it. But I've never had any problems with my PC either. And I've upgraded the heck out of it. I've had to because my musical needs keep expanding. Anyway, my choice for you would be to build your own computer. I would stay away from pre-builts. They're just garbage. And if you watch any of the reviews on some of the main PC forums or YouTube, you'll find that usually the best thing those people can say about a pre-built is, it's not the worst computer I've ever used. But that's not a recommendation. So I would stay away from that. The nice thing about building your own computer, if you're not willing to do it yourself, you can have your friend's 14-year-old kid do it, or their friend of a friend who has a kid that loves building computers. These people love doing that, and they'll do it for free. And even if it just means pizza and soda, you're still way ahead of the game. Also, there are apps out there that you can put on your iPhone or your Android phone, and you can hire people to mow your backyard and hang up your Christmas lights. There are also people that will build you a computer. You just give them the components, and for 50 or 100 bucks, they'll build it for you. And you're still way ahead of the game when you do that. You've got a much more powerful computer that's upgradable and user serviceable. And that's the way it should be. This kind of stuff that's going to fill up a landfill at some point, it's kind of sad. I have an iPhone 4 that just looks beautiful. It's in perfect shape, but it's just of no value to me anymore, and I can't use it for anything else. So it just basically sits there. I suppose I could use it as an MP3 player, but I already have that in the current phone I have. Anyway, you know which side I've come down on here. I've come down heavily on PC. Back in about 1998, when I was getting out of using a hardware sequencer, and prior to that, I'd used an Atari 130XE and some software, and I have an episode on that if you want to watch it. I looked at PC and I looked at Mac, and the plan was to run Cubase VST 3.6, and ultimately, I went with the PC. And I've never looked back, and I've never thought, oh, it's too hard, or it's not as great of an experience. The music that I've produced has been exactly the same, and it wouldn't have been any better on a Mac. And I probably saved 3 times the price. I think the Mac system I was looking at was about $1,850 at the time, and the PC I purchased was $600, and I was able to upgrade it for a couple of years. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, you can tell me in the comments how wrong I am and how, Mac is the best thing ever. And I'll listen. And if you make a good argument, I'll acknowledge that. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll be back in another episode soon. Really do appreciate your time. Take care.